You ever notice how the first time you grab a cheap tabletop centrifuge from an off-brand seller, the motor rattles, the timer never seems to stop, and you end up respinning the same sample because the speed never quite hit what you needed? I've been there, and it's a frustrating lesson that makes you wonder if any benchtop centrifuge is worth the extra cash. The fear of wasting money on a piece of equipment that looks good on paper but falls apart in the lab is what keeps a lot of us on the fence. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So the question is, does the SCILOGEX SCI 24 high-speed microcentrifuge actually feel like a smarter buy? Or is it just another flashy model with a price tag that doesn't match the experience? Let's start with the situation most of us find ourselves in. You're a graduate student or a small-scale biotech startup, and you need to spin a batch of 1.5 milliliters microtubes for plasmid prep, cell lysate clarification, or a quick protein precipitation. You've got a limited bench space, a tight budget, and you can't afford a full-size floor-standing unit. At the same time, you've probably heard horror stories about low-cost centrifuges that overheat after a few minutes, or that lock you out of the chamber because the safety interlock is finicky. That's where the high-speed, quiet, benchtop promise of the SCI 24 tries to step in. From the moment you set it on a standard lab bench, the SCI 24 feels deliberate. The footprint is roughly the size of a small printer, so it fits comfortably next to a pipette station without monopolizing the whole worktop. The unit comes with a 24-place aluminum alloy rotor that holds both 1.5 milliliters and 2.0 milliliters tubes, which is a nice compromise between capacity and flexibility. What matters most in everyday use is how the machine behaves when you actually start a run. The first thing you notice is the LCD display large enough to read from across the bench, showing real-time speed, elapsed time, and even the temperature of the rotor. The interface is button-based, not a touchscreen, which feels more reliable in a lab where gloves and occasional splashes are the norm. When I ran a typical plasmid mini prep spin, I set the speed to 13,000 revolutions per minute, which the machine hit in under a second. The acceleration is smooth, and the multi-flow air cooling system keeps the motor temperature down, even after a series of 3 consecutive 5-minute spins. In contrast, a cheaper unit I tried last year started to emit a low hum after the second run and would automatically shut down to protect itself. With the SCILOGEX, the cooling fan stays quiet, and the run completes without any interruption. That reliability translates directly into saved time, no need to pause and let a motor cool down or troubleshoot a stalled spin. Safety is another area where the SCI 24 tries to differentiate itself. The rotor is labeled biosafe and can be autoclaved, which is a real boon if you're working with pathogens or sterile samples. You can place the rotor directly into the autoclave without worrying about degrading the balance or the sealing surfaces. The unit also has an interlock that prevents the lid from opening while the rotor is still moving, and the digital readout won't let you start a spin unless the lid is fully closed. In practice, this means you can trust the machine to keep your samples sealed, and you avoid the awkward stop the spin, then manually close the lid dance that older models sometimes force on you. Now, who should actually consider buying this centrifuge? If you're running a small research lab, a teaching lab, or a biotech startup that needs to process dozens of microtubes per day, the SCI 24 hits a sweet spot. Its 15,000 revolutions per minute sealing and 380G RCF are more than enough for most nucleic acid purification, cell pellet clarification, and even some small-scale protein precipitation protocols. The fact that the rotor is autoclavable means you can stay compliant with biosafety regulations without buying a separate, more expensive rotor set. The quiet operation also makes it a good fit for shared spaces where a noisy motor could disturb neighboring workstations. On the flip side, there are clear scenarios where this machine isn't the best match. If you need to spin larger volume tubes, say 15 milliliters conical tubes, or you regularly require ultracentrifugation speeds above 20,000 revolutions per minute, you'll quickly outgrow the SCI 24's capabilities. The 24-slot rotor is perfect for high-throughput microtube work but becomes a limitation when you have to accommodate a mix of tube sizes or need a single large tube. Also, If you're operating on an extremely tight budget under $1,000, the initial price tag may still feel steep compared to the cheapest knockoffs, even though those cheaper options often cut corners on cooling and safety features. One practical weakness that shows up after a few weeks of use is the weight of the rotor. Because it's made from aluminum alloy and designed to be autoclavable, it's heavier than a standard plastic rotor. Loading and unloading the 24-tube rotor can be a bit of a workout if you're doing